Hello guys, in this short video I'm going to create a new room, and we are going to set up this room with power paths specified. And the reason we do create power paths inside the room is for power dependencies. So when you're adding equipment into racks, the system recognizes the information downstream and upstream of that rack from power perspective, and it gives you the possibility to know exactly where the right position or the right rack is for the equipment that you're adding. So in the very beginning, I am going to start adding racks or any other devices that I need for this room. So let's start with a UPS. I will choose a generic UPS. You can choose generic UPS or a UPS based on the brand that you have. You can pull that information and select that UPS from the genome library. I've selected a generic UPS for this example. I will choose a generic PDU as well for the example, so we can bring in a generic UPS and generic PDU, and you can always modify everything inside those assets inside genome library, as you know by now, that you can go to the properties and you can change the power, the physical, in all other aspects of these devices that are created in the software. Now I'm going to add a rack, so I decided to add a generic rack. If you have specific type of racks, you know that the system, this genome library, has a large list of different type of racks that you can use, or you can use a generic rack if that's the case. So I have added the rack as well to this room. So we have one UPS, one PDU, and one rack. But ultimately we will have a true redundant environment where we will add two UPSs, UPS A and UPS B, and two floor PDUs, PDU A and PDU B, where you will be able to connect each one of your rack mounted PDUs to the dedicated power path for each one of them. So here I specified a name for each one of these devices, so it's easily recognizable. You can use your company name convention for these devices, or you can decide to choose specific names for these devices if you want. At this point, I'm going to add rack mounted PDUs to the rack that I just placed inside this room. I will add generic rack mounted PDU. In your case, you will find the Star ServerTech rack mounted PDUs, and you add them to the system. The one thing that you need to be aware of is the voltage needs to match across floor PDU and rack mounted PDUs in order for setting up the server properly. So if you notice, this rack mounted PDU has a 208 single phase power capabilities, and the floor PDU is 208 three phase. So both of them has the 208 volt capabilities. So here we're still naming these rack mounted PDUs for easier recognition when we are connecting them to floor PDUs and UPSs, so you will recognize them easily. At this point, you will notice that I have the possibility to copy any asset. As soon as you copy any rack or any device or UPSs, you will have the possibility to have them in a clipboard. You'll notice on the left side there's a clipboard. I can drag and drop that set directly into my room, and now I have two sets of UPSs and PDUs, and I can change the name on the second one. Every other aspect is copied, only the name is not copied, so I will call this UPS B, and the rack mounted PDU will be called, the floor PDU is going to be called PDU B, so for easier recognition. So now I have a redundant environment where I can select my racks And if you notice, there is a 208 three-phase power available. There is an area that I skipped. You notice that there was an error message, and that error message said the panel needs to have a name. If the panel doesn't have a name, you need to specify the name for it. Here I'm choosing a color for the second UPS, and I'm choosing the feed. This one is a B feed. So you notice that those colors will follow all the way to the rack, and you will notice when you zoom in on the rack, you will see two colors in each one of those color correspond to the UPSs that is in there. So now I'm taking rack mounted PDUs and connecting them to floor PDUs. And you notice that it says your panel doesn't have a name, so it does not recognizing it. All I need to do is I need to go to the floor PDU, go to the panel section, and specify the name for this panel. This is PDU B. So I decided to choose panel B as a name. You can choose any name you want. And I'll double check the one on PDU A, and you will see that there's a generic entry in there. I can modify that, and I can say this is panel A for easier recognition. So now both of my panels inside the PDU has names. If I go to the rack mounted PDU, and when I am creating the power path, it recognizes that PDU. Here's an area that is interesting. These breakers need to be added to your genome library. The list of the breakers that you're seeing here, for you, it probably does not show up. You need to add all the breakers that are in the main genome library into your customized genome library, so you can use any one of them when you're creating the power path. The rack mounted PDU has a 208 single phase power availability. I am connecting the second rack mounted PDU to the second floor PDU, specified the module and specified the breaker type. Now you notice that my racks has two PDUs, two rack mounted PDUs, one blue and one red. It corresponds to each one of the UPSs that is feeding that particular rack mounted PDU. You can stop at this point if you want to. So your racks are ready for deploying servers, but let's go move forward and install one server. So I choose a generic server to be installed inside this rack. And if you notice, there is the voltage. One of the voltage on the server is 208 single phase. So that makes it match with the floor PDU and the rack mounted PDU. And that's why we're not going to get an error message in this case. So now if I select the phase for the rack mounted PDU, it will be available for me, and I should be able to do that for both rack mounted PDUs connected to the server, since this server has two power supplies. Both power supplies are connecting each to the two rack mounted PDUs. This can be done at this point. So you have a server is connected to power. The entire power path is created. So if you're adding new equipment into this rack, the system recognizes the power usage of those devices. If you go one step further, you can take your data center expert data from the devices that it is connected to. So if you go to device association, you can find your data center expert under the monitoring tab, and you will be able to browse your data center expert. And for example, you can take those rack mounted PDUs and connect them to the rack mounted PDU model in the data center. Thank you very much, and you have a good day.